Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for a new episode of A New Go of New Home Sales. I'm your host, Anya Christiansen, and today joining me is Ken Tucker.
Mm.
And our conversation is, not surprisingly, going to be around AI. So, Ken, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm excited to talk with you.
And Ken, if you can please give us your life story. Always curious about my guests. How did you get started? What do you do now? And how do you help people?
Yeah, so I started out in the world of information technology. I was trained as a business analyst in a methodology that actually translated really well into writing software. And so I got pulled into becoming a software developer lightly, really became a project manager and a program manager. And so I worked on very large software development lifecycle projects for the Department of Defense in the US. And as a result of that, the importance of having systematized processes in place that help you reduce errors and increase operational efficiencies became really a focus of mine. And I did that for several years. I managed a division of an IT company that was a multi-million dollar operation annually. And in order to win business in that market, and this was in the early 2000s, I had to really amp up the marketing capabilities of this company. And so I built my own internal marketing team. And that's how I fell in love with marketing. And 20 years ago, last month, I started my company and really have been focused on digital marketing since 2005.
That's really exciting, especially when people stumble into whatever they end up doing. So I have a similar story. I didn't start off in marketing necessarily and then found my way into marketing. So Ken, you have your own podcast as well. So
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about that. And I know one of the things you do is you discuss marketing.
Right.
So I'm curious, how has talking to so many guests, I think you're up to 240 podcast episodes or something,
Yeah.
has really shaped your own perspective as a marketing leader?
Yeah. So we originally started the podcast, me and a couple of other marketing friends that I knew. We decided that we wanted to give back during COVID. So we launched our podcast in August of 2020. And we really just did it as a way to give back. There's as being in the world of marketing and talking to a lot of people about marketing, there's a lot of bad information that's
Yeah.
passed out there. And everybody that I talk to has been burned at one point in time or another by somebody who's made marketing promises to them. And we wanted to just help people understand what we think is important to really know about marketing and really educate the marketplace. I've been fortunate. I've had Guy Kawasaki and people like Jay Bear and Rand Fishkin on my podcast. And it's great because their insights are fantastic. For example, Jay Bear 2 years ago was talking about the absolute critical need for speed to lead. And right now, that is the number one thing that every marketer and every person who is looking at lead generation should be paying attention to is speed to lead because the business that responds first has an 80% chance they're going to win that business, irregardless of their price. That's what Jay was able to find through his research is that it's irregardless of price. And I don't know about you, Anya, but a lot of the businesses that I talk to, they get so frustrated because they have a challenge differentiating themselves in the marketplace. And too oftentimes they find themselves competing on price and it's a race to the bottom. The way you get out of that is you be the first person to respond every time. And talking with Guy Kawasaki, just the simplicity and the elegance of how he thinks about messaging was just absolutely brilliant. And yeah, so I could go on and on. I love having conversations about marketing because every time I have one, I learn something.
Love that. Same. I feel same about podcasting. It lets you meet so many interesting people and open so many doors. So definitely podcasting is oversaturated, I think, at this point, but there's a voice for everybody. So if you
Yeah.
ever thought about it, it's definitely a cool thing. You mentioned that every single person has had some bad information given to them by marketing leaders.
Yeah.
What are some bad marketing advice that you've heard recently? Whether it's SEO, whatever topic you want to pick, like especially maybe as it comes to now AI, what's just bad information that goes around that people are either just ignorant or maybe misinformed?
Yeah. So just an example this morning of a conversation I had with a client. They've had a software tool that it has marketing capabilities. This is a company that is never going to use that tool, but they've had this tool as a subscription for a couple of $100 a month for years now.
Yep.
And when it's after we started working with them, they're like, "Can you call these people and find out what am I getting for this?" Only to find out it literally is just the subscription to the tool. There are no services being delivered. And
Yep.
so it's really easy to spend money on a lot. There are so many different marketing tools that are out there, and a lot of them fit the need very well. Sometimes for a long period of time, sometimes for a short period of time. It's really easy to forget you have those subscriptions. So do yourself a favor and do an audit of what tools you have, or have somebody do an independent audit for you and look at your tech stack and see what you have. I think another thing that honestly, it just drives me nuts and makes our job so hard at the start of every project is just the complete disarray that marketing companies create when they set up somebody's website. They separate too oftentimes the hosting, the DNS records, where the domain is registered, how the email is managed. And unless you come from an IT background, it makes it very hard for a lot of small businesses to be able to unpack that and unwind that if they need to make a change. And half the time they find out that they don't even own something that they thought they owned. They're actually renting their domain name, or, they're on somebody else's shared server for hosting, and that person is never going to give them access to be able to move it off. And
Yep.
unfortunately, too oftentimes they're not very cooperative in helping the business get that moved off of hosting. So the list of horrors goes on and on. The other
Yeah.
big thing that's really, I think, a huge problem is so many people sell solutions that are good for them, but not right for the business. They have a tool vendor mentality. So if your specialization is Facebook advertising, you're going to
Mhm.
make that sound like it can do everything possible for a particular client. And look, the reality is if you're a home builder or you're in the emergency plumbing business, Facebook may not be the best platform for you to advertise on. It may be worthwhile, but just to categorically force that down somebody's throat, that just drives me nuts. And I run into a lot of people who've been victims of what they thought was really an SEO program, and it was a paid advertising program in disguise.
Yeah, such great points. All of these I love, especially with the one system versus multiple systems. And I think the subscriptions fit into that as well, because when you have multiple systems, you probably have multiple subscriptions to different things, and it's harder to keep track of that. So, what's your view when builders are trying to figure out the system? Like, how do you decide on that? Because you're right, in my opinion, and I may be biased, try to keep it as simple as possible, right? Like, simple is usually the solution.
Yeah,
Also with AI and everything, data, you want to think about it. If you're taking data from one bucket to the next bucket, and then you're taking it from that bucket, moving it to the next bucket, what's going to happen? It's like a broken telephone is what you're going to end up having.
right.
So keep it in, keep it simple, like one
Yeah.
solution versus many different solutions, one subscription versus many subscriptions. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that if you can achieve, that's great. I do want to point out that for like builders, they use tools like Builder Trend and things like that. Those are great on the operational and production side of things. The marketing tool set probably
It is
isn't
not a
as
CRM.
right. It's not a CRM, and the marketing toolkit that it gives you is not nearly as strong as a CRM with really great marketing automation capabilities. Try to settle on maybe two tools. Make sure that the operational system and the production system that you're using can communicate with another tool, because on the
Mhm.
front end, you should have a marketing suite, and then on the back end, you need to have what you need to have to be able to run your business, the production, the
The
supplies.
ERP, yeah.
Yeah. And make sure that you can communicate through Zapier or Make or an API. And then may obviously on the front end, the marketing solution also has to be able to talk through those solutions if there's not a direct integration.
Yes, absolutely. And run away if there is no API integration, just run
Right.
away.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Oh,
Couldn't agree
yeah.
more.
Okay. So you said that first person to respond will typically get the sale no matter what product it is. So I think that has always been a challenge in home building, but luckily I feel like we've had this wave of OSCs moving into the scene, right? Like they were really taking that place between the salespeople and the website, right? They were the nurturers, they were the responders. How do you see the role of OSCs evolve as we're heading into this new interesting terrain with AI and instant responses? And how long is it too long to take to respond? So I guess too many questions. Let's start
Right.
with the role of
Right.
OSCs first.
Yeah. So let me make sure I understand what you mean by OSC.
So online sales counselors. So they
Okay.
fill that space
Yeah.
for home builders
Okay.
that they would be the first to respond. So it's, are they responding fast enough? Do we see most home builders utilizing them now? Are we making room for AI chat? So it's an interesting time for OSCs, I think. And I think a lot
Right.
of them may be feeling like, oh, am I about to lose my job soon?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I'm biased. I think an AI phone system is the best solution that's going right now. Too many call related services, they are supporting multiple clients, and there's also turnover in their staff. The responses are going to vary from person to person. And what I love about AI voice is it's conversational and it guarantees that you're the first to respond every single time. These systems can typically handle up to 200 concurrent phone calls. You train the system to answer as if it's your best employee. So you take all of the cumulative knowledge of everybody that would be involved, create a robust set of frequently asked questions, train your AI phone system and your AI chatbot around those frequently asked questions, and train it on what it can and can't answer, and then develop an escalation procedure. The gold standard right now is booked appointments. That's what we're all trying to accomplish. It's not the number of leads you're getting. That's an important factor, but ultimately the thing that moves the needle, how many sales calls or how many sales conversations are you getting booked? And once you get that solved, then you need to pay attention, obviously, to your close rate on those sales calls. But I think with AI, it's very dynamic. It's very efficient. I'm a big believer if you're going to use an AI phone system, tell people up front when it answers the call, you've reached the AI phone assistant for such and such a company. Give it a
Mhm.
name, whatever you want to do. But if you do that, and then you say, if you'd prefer to talk to a live agent, give people an option. There are going to be people who are very reluctant to talk to AI for a variety of reasons. They're scared of it or whatnot, but it's conversational. It's not like a phone tree system. It's not like press one to reach accounting, press two to get to sales. It's actually conversational. You don't have to sit there and listen to a 5 minute message before you can even take action to interact
Mhm.
with somebody. The other statistic that's just absolutely eye-popping is if you miss a phone call and it's from a cold lead, it's from somebody who doesn't already have a relationship with your business, 80% of the time they will not leave a voicemail. They'll call the next company that they find in the search result. Having an AI-driven solution where you're answering every single call, which, by the way, we used to have this concept of speed to lead, used to be a golden window of 2 to 5 minutes to respond, gave you that 80% chance that you were going to win that business.
But
That's
it's even
now
shorter now.
it's
It's
instantaneous. It's instant because AI, and if you're not using AI today for your business, you either have a competitor that's already using it or they're going to be using it very soon, and you're going to lose out on those opportunities.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't stay away from some of the objections that I feel like a lot of people have when it comes to AI. And you're right that I'm glad also that you're making an option to say, okay, we do have an option to speak to a person because I feel
Right.
like that's important, right? It's again, providing what your customers are looking for. Like
Right.
I, for example, would want to talk to AI all day long, and I would be like avoiding speaking to a live human as long as I possibly could. But
Exactly.
for that to happen, it cannot be dumb. And I think one of the things that we've all been burned in the marketing in the past is by that decision tree AI, right?
Yeah, it's horrible.
That can answer a couple of questions, and then you basically end up in circles and circles. You can't understand anything really substantial.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a big difference here. So you are training these AI on your, essentially training them on the same materials that you would be training your human OSCs on.
Yeah, exactly. And the great thing is an AI phone system done right, every phone call is going to have its transcripts sent to you. So you can review those, you can modify the responses. So if the AI is annoying somebody because it's trying to ask them how do you spell your last name and it doesn't get the spelling right and it keeps asking over and over again, you need to fix that in your AI phone answering system. So you need to change the prompts to be able to handle that. But yeah, again, I think if you're upfront about using AI, most people are going to be okay with it, but give that quick exit for those people who aren't so that they can talk to a live human.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, very interesting. Why did you decide that the phone call was the way to go as opposed to a chat?
I think they're both really important, and you can use the same FAQ process to train both. It really depends on who your clientele is. If you're building homes that are appealing to first-time home buyers and younger generation of people, for example, an AI chat may be the way to go. If you're dealing with people who tend to be a little bit older, maybe they're more comfortable using the phone. So I think it depends on who your ideal customer profile really is. If you can do both in conjunction with each other, I think that's the strongest option. But at a certain point in time, you just can't afford to miss a phone call. That's just the cold hard reality of today. Every missed phone call is costing you revenue. And the other problem that AI is great for is all of the spam phone calls that you get. I'm in marketing, and I bet I get 10 calls a day for me to optimize my Google profile and to claim it. And I can't even imagine what the average business faces. Or another classic is somebody's trying to sell you a water cooler and you work in a virtual office. That's never going to make sense. There's another study that's out there that says if you're interrupted, it takes about, I think it's 30 minutes to an hour for you to get back into the swing of what you were doing from that interruption.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So if you're constantly answering spam phone calls, you're losing a lot of productivity time. And people don't tend to factor that stuff in. It's hard to actually put a price on that. But fortunately, somebody did a study on that and measured that.
Yeah. What do you say to people who are like, we shouldn't give AI or jobs like that, but we're like outsourcing our own
Yeah.
futures? Is
Yeah.
that what's, we should keep human jobs instead of giving those to AI?
Yeah, I think that there's a legitimate concern, and look, I think AI is going to wreak havoc in the job world sooner rather than later. But the reality with AI right now is it can be a liberating tool. So instead of having somebody sitting at a desk all day long, waiting to answer the phone, again, every time they answer a phone, they're getting interrupted. So for you to expect them to be able to have a lot of productivity when they're answering phones and constantly being interrupted, I don't think you're being honest with yourself. So you could take that person and let them actually spend the time and spend the focus on what you were wanting them to do while they weren't answering phone calls, and they can do it without distraction. So sure, you can save money by not hiring a receptionist or having somebody answer the phone, but you can also repurpose that person to give them a more meaningful, more interesting job. There's never going to be a replacement for human beings talking on the phone.
I
But
agree with
but
you. It's just like we have to figure out other ways to make ourselves more value. Yeah,
yeah,
enjoying what you do and pursuing things that are interesting to you as opposed to doing some of those mundane things, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing too, in full disclosure, I'm part of Perry Belcher's mastermind program called Ignite Mastermind. And I was talking with him about why people are reluctant to use AI for a phone answering system and how can, what's an important factor to point out to people. And one of the things he says is, you know what? It gives you the ability to have rejection-proof lead generation. And I don't know about you, but I know for a fact that I sometimes don't call people back as fast as I should because I always have a little bit of anxiety about whether or not they're going to tell me no. If you do any kind of sales, your experience is you're going to hear no a heck of a lot more than you're going to hear yes. And if you're not really wired to be a salesperson, but you find yourself having to be a salesperson, I want to talk to people who I know are really well qualified, who have interest in talking about the solution I might be offering and not hearing no right away and that actually deters people from responding.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Very
Um,
interesting.
so you're also a published author, which congratulations. Not many people can say that. And your best-selling book on Amazon, Content Marketing for Local Search, was actually recently updated with AI strategies.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us what's the biggest change AI has introduced specifically to local content marketing?
Yeah, so I think two things really. One is the frequently asked questions. Let AI help you generate all of the frequently asked questions that might make sense for your business, and then take those to the humans that work in the business and have them answer those questions. It can generate answers, validate those answers,
Mhm.
answer in your own voice, remove the questions that don't make sense for your business. FAQ content has great SEO value. You can plug in Google questions and answers for every one of those FAQs. When you're putting that onto your Google business profile, that's helping you optimize your Google business profile on a regular basis. And it leads into the second thing, which I think is super important, and that is the ability to really ramp up your content production and repurpose your content. So what I love to see is using AI to generate the first cut of video scripts for YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels, and then have it vetted and reviewed and approved by human experts. But then if you do video right, it feeds the content beast. We start with doing 3 to 5 minute videos, taking those videos, turning those into blog posts, taking the transcription, the video on is embedded, putting it on YouTube, putting it on social media, taking the transcript and writing a blog from the transcript and putting both of those on that web page for great SEO content, then repurposing that into a series of social media posts, YouTube shorts, Instagram reels, whatever, writing press releases because now you have a video that's probably press worthy. And right now, one of the things that's really hot is getting signals from other websites. No longer links. Links are always going to be important, but you don't have to get a link to still get some SEO juice. If your business is being talked about online through press releases and whatnot, even if they don't share the do follow link, that mention still carries a little bit of weight in the SEO perspective. And then you take that and you turn that into email content. You've got a content machine. And the way you ramp up that and amp up that content machine is through AI. But again, everything needs to be vetted by humans.
Yes.
If you just take the AI output as it is, sometimes it's going to be great. So for video short scripts, maybe that's okay. But for blog posts, you need to make sure you write it and edit
I
it.
have a really funny story about that. Somebody actually posted it on social media recently from one of the OSCs. They were in the area where you could see the shuttle launches.
Okay.
And so they were writing a blog on like top whatever 10 places to see the shuttle launch. And one
Okay.
of the places that AI pulled in was a nudist beach.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
it's I'm sure it's gonna be great, but like why nudist beach? So point being, make sure you double check your content because yeah, it is that it is, it can pull in something like that. And yeah,
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can just take the time. And I may add one thing to that. I love the strategy, my playbook from a new go, how I can create all of our content. But one of the other things I would recommend doing is beyond the FAQ, next stage you can do is think about all the questions that your ideal customer is typing in or asking when they're trying to find you as a solution.
Yeah.
And you want to answer those questions because then again, now people are having to type in more of a conversations right into AI. So when they're chatting with ChatGPT, you want your content to be pulled into that conversation. So you want to think, almost put yourself in your customer's shoe and think about what types of things are they typing in
Yeah.
into those chats in order to show up as an answer to that. And
Yeah. Yeah. The answer engine optimization. Yeah. You want to think about every question that people are searching now by asking questions.
yes.
They're either doing it through voice search or they're even typing that in. And the best way to future-proof your search engine optimization from what we see with zero click search results. Right now, that's not impacting local businesses where people are doing a search for like home builder near me or home builder St. Augustine, Florida, or
Mhm.
whatever. But it's coming, and we know it's coming. Right now, it's decimating information related businesses. If you ask, how old is Brad Pitt? You're going to get a Google AI overview and it's going to give you the answer, and people aren't clicking on the source. Even though they answered that question, they're not getting any SEO benefit and they're losing massive amounts of traffic. That's not happening yet for local businesses that serve
I would
businesses
disagree
locally.
with you. I think it's already starting to happen because you're already starting to see, for example, for new construction, if I type in, you know, who are the top builders in Wayne, Pennsylvania, they will already pull in answers for me from Toll Brothers, Ryan Holmes, whoever else is going to be showing up in there. So
Okay.
I could even take that conversations further to figure out, okay, of those ones, who has the best reputation, right? Again, it's going to
Yeah.
filter it down. So I may then end up coming essentially to Joe Schmo Builder's website very much later in the process where I had
Yeah.
already filtered stuff. So I think it's starting to happen already. And
I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and the traffic, I think we're already starting to see that drop because, yeah, when somebody comes into your website, they may be on step 10 already.
Right.
But for that to happen, your website has to have the answers in
Right.
order for them to pull you in. And also one thing I did notice is that, especially for local results, and I guess it's not surprising because just like for local results with Google reviews, etc., they seem to put a lot of a meaning on your rating of your company. So whether or not you're going to show up in AI chat results, which I thought was pretty cool, which I guess makes sense, right? They're
Yeah.
going to recommend more
Yeah.
reputable companies.
Yeah. What's interesting with AI search and the impact that it's having on search results is it's actually refreshing because good, solid SEO practices from 10 years ago
Yes.
still work really well, and it is the answer for moving forward. You may need to tweak it a little bit. The search phrases are changed because people are more
Mhm.
sophisticated because they're asking questions. The large language models, they want structured information and in the form of questions and answers, and making sure you're using schema markup on your website and all that is super important. The other thing is don't forget about Bing. And I saw within the last day or so that I think Bing and OpenAI, who makes ChatGPT, have maybe had a falling out and maybe even done some separation. But right now, historically, and up until, unless this has just changed within the last day or so, ChatGPT does help to fuel Bing search results. When you look at Google search, image search, and YouTube video searches, Google has 90% of the search traffic.
I think it dropped. I think it
It's
dropped to 70%.
70%. Okay.
Yeah, it just
So,
had a
but
huge
it's,
drop.
yeah,
But still,
but it's,
obviously, it's still going to be
yeah,
dominant. Right.
yeah. But if people, Bing has become an important source for AI search. You just need to factor that in as well.
You
So
know what else is? It's pulling a lot of information from LinkedIn and Reddit of all things.
yeah,
Reddit,
Reddit.
go
Reddit's
figure,
big.
freaking
Yeah.
learning from the worst of humanity in Reddit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now it is, should you be considering being on Reddit just to show up in those answers? So it is something that we're certainly playing around with to figure
Yeah.
it out. And
Yeah.
it's a different shift and it requires a different approach to it.
Yeah.
Can
No
let me
doubt.
ask you this question that I get often from my audience is,
Okay.
okay, with content creation, we know we need content, like you said, old proven strategies of content marketing still work to this day when it comes to
Mhm.
AI search. So quality over quantity. It's, oh, can I use ChatGPT to write my content? Obviously proofreading it, but can it tell that it's not human content, not a human created it? Is there more weight put on the fact that it was human versus ChatGPT? What's your take on that?
I would never recommend to people to just have take whatever is produced out of Chat GPT and slap it on your website and think you're done. For one, it's going to give, even if it's a good article and it's even well written, it's still pretty average content. And one of the things that Google was looking for is authoritative content. It wants to see a business really establish leadership in a particular market. So, a home builder in a particular location. And so it wants that authenticity and that authority. And you're probably not going to get that out of the box with just slapping a GPT written article onto your website. So I think you need to have human edited content. There are some other writing tools that might help you make that better. Everything that you do through Chat GPT, I would train it on your business so that it's answering in your voice, it's answering questions that are relevant to the way you do business. So, for example, if you build homes, but you use contractor grade material, you don't use like higher end windows like Pella or Anderson or something like that. You don't want to have any incorrect information that was generated. And GPT doesn't know if your business uses the premium materials or uses the contractor grade materials. So you have to vet everything. That's I think, the absolute critical thing. In terms of overall quality versus quantity, you need some of both, honestly. SEO still works best when you have content pillars and you have a structure of content that feeds up to a top level page that is the page that you want to establish as the authority and the page that you definitely want to get to rank. And so I think there's an opportunity for some blended content where that top level content, I think you need to pay extra attention to, and that's got to be really exceptionally well written and vetted absolutely by humans. I think the feeding content to round out the semantically similar phrases and prop up that authority of that top level page probably could get by with a little bit less scrutiny because those pages are really written as much for SEO as they are for humans. They probably will get practically no traffic. I would still caution that. I still think it's important for humans to read everything.
Yes, great advice. I feel like we could probably keep going on and on here about all things marketing. One piece of advice I will give you guys to spin off of your recommendation about personalizing all of the content on ChatGPT for your business. The easy way to do it is through projects. So I think you do have to be a premium subscriber to ChatGPT to get projects feature, but basically projects feature is something that you give it once time set of instructions. For example, if you want to write blogs for your business, you can tell how many words you want. You want it to be optimized for AI, for SEO. So you give it all these parameters. You can give it links to include for your business, so specific pages if you're referencing specific products and whatever information would be useful. And then you can tweak it as you need to. Plus, you can include your own voice so that when it generates it, it's all generated in that. So essentially, every time you don't have to redo it every time to tell it this information. You just work in a project and tell it, okay, write a blog on this topic. And then, yeah, it's going to get you a lot closer to where you need to be for
Right.
editing. So that's a good hack just to remember.
Yeah, great
Okay,
point.
again, because we literally could chat here for 2 hours, I swear. So if somebody wants to learn about you, about your services, what's the best way? How can people connect with you? How can we learn more about you?
Yeah, so visiting my website, changescapeweb.com, is probably the best. Our social media handles are at Changescape, YouTube channels at Changescape, Facebook, Instagram. And then on our YouTube channel, we have all of the podcast episodes, which I think has a wealth of marketing knowledge and information for folks. That's probably the best way. And I'm always happy to have a conversation with people to help them figure out what's the right marketing solution for them. Even if I'm not the right fit, I still love to have those conversations because every time I talk about marketing, I learn something.
Absolutely. Ken, thank you so much for being on the show. It was an interesting conversation for me. And before I let you go, is there anything you think is important for our listeners to know, whether it's a topic we've covered today or not?
I just can't stress the speed to lead enough right now. If you're fortunate enough in a market where that's not happening, it gives you the opportunity to get to dominance fast right now. And it also gets you the ability to get out of that rush to the bottom in terms of winning business only on price. I know a lot of businesses work really hard to establish differentiating criteria, but even then, it's still hard sometimes to get the price that you want. Speed to lead can be the answer. And then also keep in mind that give people the fast button, because you can charge a premium for fast. There are plenty of people who have a problem that they want to have solved and give them a way to get that done quicker. You can charge them a premium and you can still probably manage your existing pipeline and not affect any of your existing projects.
Love that. Great advice. It's oldie but goodie, right?
Right.
That advice stands the test of time, I feel like. So,
Yeah.
especially in this market, and when you're paying so much per lead, and then you're going to lose the lead by not answering to that lead very quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken, for being on today. Really
Thank
enjoyed our
you.
conversation, and I'll be sure to link your information in the show notes so you guys can check Ken out, pick up a copy of his book, and we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you so much for being with us.
All right. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.